Even your critics agree that you are the most influential diplomat of the last century. That you shaped the world more than any other person. From the moment you started in the White House in '69 until today, do you think we live in a much safer world, about the same, or are we less safe?
It's a very good question. Uh, from some points of view, it's a safer world. From other points of view, it's a less safe world.
Like what?
From the point of view that it is a safer world, when I entered as a special assistant to the president into the White House, Russia and the United States were confronting each other in a nuclear situation. And all of our calculations had to be on the basis that a nuclear war was at least conceivable. And that had huge consequences. So I never spoke about that because that would have weakened us, but I was very conscious of the responsibility that we in the White House had to keep in mind the possible destruction of civilization. That danger is substantially lowered because there's less superpower confrontation. On the other hand, the political situation is more complex. In 1969, you were right on one side or the other, more or less. Now there are revolutionary changes going on in many parts of the world simultaneously, which can have unforeseeable consequences. We don't know yet what the ultimate outcome is of the Arab Spring in Egypt.
Right.
And it's sort of ironical that the people who made much of the revolution, the social networks,
Yeah.
are bystanders in that issue. And it turns out that they know how to get people to a square,
Right.
but they don't know what to do with them once they get them there.
What's happening in Russia and what is it going? Is that an Arab Spring arriving there?
Well, the way the Arab Spring developed, it's possible in any country
Yeah.
where the technical means of establishing rapid communications with large number of people outside the control of the government. So it is conceivable that you have an Arab Spring type situation. But even when you have an Arab Spring, as I said before, you have to know what you are for. It isn't enough to be against.
Uh-huh.
Now, Russia historically has had this dilemma. Many of its strong leaders were reformers in the economic and social field, but repressive in the political field. And can they overcome that in the next phase? That will be the challenge before them.
The changes, if there are changes in Russia, can they affect or weaken Iran?
Well, in the long run,
Mm-hmm.
a nuclear country on the border of Russia with a government that insists on the implementation of Islamic maxims must create a great feeling of insecurity in Russia. So from that point of view, they're on our side vis-a-vis Iran. On the other hand, a country that engages America and keeps us preoccupied has some strategic benefits for Russia. So they go back and forth between these points of view. And above all, they don't want to unleash an Islamic revolution in their country, in the south, where they have so many Muslims. So they're moving with great care.
Dr. Kissinger, besides detente, you are giving enormous credit for the opening of relations with China, ending the war in Vietnam, gave you a prize. On the negative column, where do you think you could have done better? If there is one.
I'm often, when I was in government, you read many stories about dramatic events in which I was engaged, but I felt I had an obligation to think about them carefully and to consult a lot of people. So many things I did I probably would do again. I wish we had established a better balance between the question you raised, between the human rights aspect and the other aspect. But that's, I find it hard to find the exact moment when we could have done it.
Is there anything that, when you look at Brazil, or you probably know a lot about Brazil, and you have clients coming and maybe asking questions about Brazil, do you give a positive advice? Is there a place that you recommend?
To Brazil?
Yeah.
No, it's a country, I first visited Brazil in 1962. During the World Cup in Chile, which you won. And I was trapped for 2 days in the house of somebody who was living up in the hills in Rio, because there was such a celebration going on in Rio that I had a little trouble getting to my hotel. I've always admired the ability of Brazil to take conflicting points of view and merge them into a greater unity. And I was always impressed by the Brazilian Foreign Office, which is a very skillful operation. And now in recent years, Brazil has become a significant international player. And then I like the style of life in Brazil. Combination of serious work and not taking oneself totally seriously in an ultimate sense.
Well,
so I have great hopes for Brazil as a major country.
Dr. Kissinger, thank you again.
Thank you.
Se você quer saber mais sobre a entrevista com o Dr. Kissinger e sobre a China, vá no nosso site no Milênio. Muito obrigado.